Dr. Dustin Kniffin. I created a PowerPoint presentation for you guys. There was some things I learned while I was a student in school, and I'm sure you'll learn as you go and as you're a student in school practicing Pierce. And so what I want to do was take some of my mistakes, some of the things I've learned, how to read thermography. Thermography can be kind of difficult to read, especially starting out. As you play around with it and practice a little bit more, you become more comfortable with it. And so I made a presentation with a lot of the Pierce mate rule, scan change. Scan change is what they look like, what it looks like when really good scan change, what it looks like when you put someone in pattern. And so I wanted to share that with you guys, and hopefully you find it valuable. All right, I guess we're up and running. My name's Dr. Dustin Kniffin. I'm a recent graduate from Life University. And so I made this video. I got inspired to make it because I know some of the struggles some students go through when they're learning the Pierce method. And so I used to teach this PowerPoint in the advanced club, but I wanted to make it so it was a little bit more accessible. And it's harder for someone else to teach it sometimes for me, so I figured I'd go through it for you guys. So there's a couple new technologies, and I'm going to go through some thermography case studies to show you some mistakes and stuff that I made while practicing, because as soon as you get all of your tools and stuff, your thermography instrument, you're going to make some mistakes, and then you're going to learn some cool things too. And so if I can reduce the number of mistakes you make, then I've done my job. So we know that chiropractic, it's the science, art, and philosophy, and but knowledge and technology are always growing and always moving. And so I just wanted to, that's a good slide. Some of you may not know, but Titron, I made this cheat sheet for you guys. A lot of you guys aren't using the full benefits of the Titron software. So if you get some time, look this over. Maybe I'll do another one and show you how to use it and how I use it. So it's a little bit more easy and user-friendly. All right. Here's an instrument, DTG, or it's like a DTG. It's Unitix. Their regional sales guy, his name's Michael Frant. There's a cell phone number. I think they're approximately $1,000. Dr. Adam Keeler is the one that told me about these, and they're just like the DTG. So if you need one, try that out and let me know how it goes. The GOM Player. This is a software you can download for free off the internet. You can change the brightness on it, so sometimes when you download a fluoro, it's not as clear as it is on the CD. You can change the contrast, you can speed it up, speed it down, you can pick areas that you want to do multiple replays. There's all kinds of stuff that you can use it for. So you can check out that program if that's something you're interested in. I'm just sharing some of the stuff with you. This is called the ShuttleXpress. So as you can see right here is like a little dial, and then it's got these buttons. So you can customize these buttons. I did that when I first got mine. I don't use it as much anymore as when I did when I was first studying fluoros. So I got sick of rewinding the fluoros all the time. So this dial, you can like speed it up and go forward, or speed it up and go backwards. You just move that real quick. It's easy for it makes it easier when you're first studying fluoros, because you can go back and forth in slow motion. You can see the motion. Then as you get better, it becomes a little bit easier for you to see. But it's very good for when you're first starting out, or if somebody's going through a floor really fast and you need to slow it down, this is a good one to use. Some video fluoroscopy machines. Since we don't have any currently, there's talk of one being made, but we'll wait until that day until it's made. These are the ones that they use in the hospitals. So they're OEC 9400, OEC 9600, 9800. Now these OECs, they're C-arms, so they're not like the Continental. So don't, make sure you don't get those mixed up. I'll show you a couple pictures. But you just type in OEC 9400, OEC 9600, and 9800 into eBay or wherever, and they can come up. There's a lot of providers too. The downfall of this is that you're going to need to modify it in order to make it go up and down vertically. Just keep that in mind. We'll talk about modifications at a later day. The 9400 is becoming expired. That one's a little harder to find, so you want to either go with the 9600 and 9800. This one's a lot more money, so this would probably be the ideal for right now because you can still find replacement parts. So here you go. Here's a price difference. The 9400 is about 10 grand, the 9600 about 18 grand, and then the 9800 about 70 grand. So that's just you can see this is a C-arm, so they turn like that, and I would turn the other way so it can go up and down. But the problem is this piece doesn't go up and down high enough, so you'd have to modify this if you were to buy it. So you could use it in practice. So I'm going to go over some case. I guess I can turn this to Dr. Dustin now. I'm going to share some case studies with you. Now, there may be mistakes in there that I don't even know of. There's just some things I learned while I was a student because I scanned a lot of people. It was very challenging for me to know, what's a scan change, what's a good scan, all the, is it user error, is it me, is it the instrument? There was all kinds of things I was questioning because I get very frustrated sometimes, and so I just kept plugging away and kept trying it out. So I figured I'd share some of the mistakes I made, some things I learned over time, so that way I could share it with you and decrease the mistakes that you make. So pattern analysis. Using Pierce, we want to break any patterns at the patient's end, and ultimately we want the lines to straighten out, vertically up and down. We want them to be fairly straight. How we achieve this is we have to do proper pattern work, so we have to make sure they're in pattern, out of pattern if we're going to adjust. We have to give the adjustments at the right place, the right time, the right amount of force, the right line of drive. Those are all critical. And something that gets overlooked in chiropractic is giving the body proper time to heal. I feel like we're always trying to rush adjustments, or we get impatient, or the patient may be experiencing symptoms. And so don't forget that one. The body takes time to heal. So here we go. The first case. There's a 20-year-old male. He had slight neck stiffness, nothing major going on. He was only here for a weekend, so I had 3 days. So I'm going to walk you through that case. I'm going to show you both the delta T and the lines. I think as a student starting out, I still look at them. I look at the lines. I think the lines tell you a little bit more of what's going on than the delta T's. So here it is. So this yellow line right here, this was an established pattern. C5 was adjusted. The next, let's see, that was on the 28th. 2 days later, I had this scan, so it was different. So I adjusted T1, T2 because I had a C5, T1, T2, and I think an occiput. As you can see, I did not adjust all those segments. This was before the modification to the Titron software. So we've even improved since when I made this PowerPoint and when I made how I take notes now. So disregard some of the stuff. I'll walk you through it. So C5 was adjusted. That was established. That was multiple scans. I just put one on here to make it easier so you guys can understand it. Different scans. So I was like, I don't know. He's leaving tomorrow. Do I adjust or do I not adjust? I adjusted. I did T1, T2, and then here's the post scans. And so you're like, why do you have 2 scans? One was from 1.7, so that was before C5 was adjusted. So on 1.7, they were clear, so I didn't do a fluoro or anything like that. But then when I saw them on 128, I was like, hey, let's go get a fluoro to scan you're in pattern. Let's go see what's going on. Here's the delta T's if you want to see it. So this was that day that I was telling you everything was smooth. You know, I'm not going to adjust anything if they're clear, right? And then this was when we got them fluoroed and adjusted C5. And then we adjusted T1, T2, that other scan that I showed you. And then this was the end result. Even though we saw occiput inflection, I didn't adjust everything because it's even hard to get a scan to look like that. So I left that alone. It wasn't the right time for that adjustment, even if it was out. Here's another case, a female. She's 24 years old. The student has tightness in between shoulder blades, headaches once in a while. Let's see. So on this one, see the first scan was on 7/26. That's this. That's the pink scan right here. 8/10 is yellow. That was a pattern, or at least what I considered a pattern. Not those two scans, but this was similar to another scan. So I adjusted T2. The post scan was this light blue one. So after the yellow one, this light blue one. So that was the post scan. That was post T2. And then I got this blue one here. Now this one, looking back on it now, I don't know if I would call that pattern, but anyways, I thought it was pattern, so I adjusted, right? You guys as students are probably gonna do this all the time. So, oh, here we go. I was adjustment hungry. I was just going after it. And so I adjusted T2 again, and then let's see, T4. This red line was the result. So yeah, so down here I have yellow line, doesn't quite look like T2 pattern, but I adjusted anyways. Here's the delta T's. So these can be a little misleading sometimes. So if you look at the dates on here, this is 11/9, that was 7/26. So 7/26, that's this pink line, 11/9. Let's see, 11/9 is the blue one. So they don't look anything like delta T or line-wise. And I thought the pattern came back. Let's see what's on this side. Yeah, so these look a little bit more identical. As you can see, that big swing in the area. Now as a student, this is something to keep in mind. I'm focusing on this one area because it's easier to teach that way, but you gotta look at the whole scan. Okay? You can't just you can't always just focus on one little curve in the scan all the time. For this patient, there was a very distinct cold swing that showed up. And I'm focusing mostly on the left side to make it easier also. I know there's two, there's a left and a right, but I'm focusing on the left side just to make it easier for teaching. Okay, so pattern. So I adjusted adjusted T2, right? Actually, no, I adjusted, let's see. So the dark blue was 11/9. Oh, that was after I adjusted, and then it came back 12/3. So I adjusted T1, T2, and T3. Not sure why. If I had T2 pattern, usually stick with T2. But I was a student, so these are some of the mistakes you make, and you live and you learn, right? Okay. So here's what it looks like on the delta T's. So this is why it's important to look at the lines. Let's go back up here. You see how that is almost identical in this area? But yeah, on here it looks like it's very diminished, and here it's like blown out through the roof. So you can't always go by the delta T's. Look at the delta T's, but you gotta look at the lines. So I adjusted T2 again. I got the same result. It cleared, got a lot straighter in through that area. I'm not going to really focus down here, even though there's differences. We can talk about that, but I'm just trying to keep it simple. Okay. So that area is straightened out. As you can see over there, it's straightened out here. So that's a pretty good job. T1, T2. So I adjusted. This was a result. Remember, I called that the same pattern. If we come up to here, that's these two scans. See those three scans? Those are the same three that are right here. I just added in the other post T1, T2. Okay. So now, so the pattern came back again. Crazy. So there you go. So you see how the upper part is identical. And we know it can change because we adjusted it and it straightened out. So we know it can change. So it came back in pattern. So what do? Right? You adjust when in pattern. There's so that's when I called them patterns. So right there. So off from here, see these three lines I called pattern? That's what I put pattern underneath, all three of these. So these are identical up at the top. But as you can see here, or maybe not super identical, but they got the same curves and they almost follow on top of each other very closely. But here they're all three different. In fact, this one is showing a huge cold swing. This one's showing a huge hot swing. So you gotta look at the lines. Okay. So the pattern came back. I adjusted T2, what is it, like 2 or 3 times there? So it keep coming back. What's the time frame on there? 11/9 to 3/25, so over a 4-month period. So it came back, so I was like, well, let's check out the mate, right? The mate to T2 is C1. So I adjusted occiput. So as you can see here, that green line in there, that was the same pattern as those other three. And so I adjusted an occiput, and I got a very similar clear out that I did with the T1 to T3, what we were calling mostly T2 in there. And so, similar change. So there we go. So these are the three patterns. So that was it. I don't know if you want to call them T2 or T1 to T3. I don't know. I probably on this one I adjusted T1 to T3. This one I adjusted T2. So it's hard saying. I mean, I could have had a T3 pattern in there, a T1 pattern. These are the mistakes you make as a student, right? Anyways, this pattern, broke the pattern, at least on the lines, broke the pattern, did the occiput. So I was like, that's when I was like, okay, if the pattern keeps coming back, what do? You check the mate, right? So that was the post occiput, so that's a little different. So keep in mind, healing takes time. So don't forget that concept. It's a good one. So here we go. So this is scans after the occiput adjustment. And let's see when the occiput adjustment was performed. On 3/25, it looks like. On 4. Yeah, so I adjusted on 3/25 the occiput. So that was this date. So this is the post occiput adjustment. Okay. So 3/25. On 4/5 it's on, so I don't get confused. So 4/5 is the post occiput adjustment. Okay. So the yellow one is post occiput adjustment. And then 4.6 is that light blue one. And so that one I thought was a little bit different than the yellow one, so I left it alone. And then 4.12 is a green one, and that one was different. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe some stuff is changing here. Because we say if the scans are changing, that means the body's adapting, you leave it alone, right? So we got the green one, and then we got the red one. So it's starting to straighten out now. So it's starting to get worse, and then it's starting to get a little bit better, which is very interesting. Okay, so keep that in mind. You're always looking for pattern. Even though the scan looks bad, doesn't mean you necessarily have to adjust. So all three of these scans are after the occiput adjustment, and no adjustment was given. So 4.6, so 4.5 we said we was posted occiput adjustment, right? And then 4.6 was post. So just gonna double check. Yeah, so 4.5. So 4.5 was post. So then it changed from here to here, no adjustment. Changed from here to here, and then it changed from here to here. All after the occiput adjustment. So what do? You just give it more time, right? The body's changing. So there we go. So there's all the scans. So 4.19. Look at 4.19. That's this one right here. So all these are after the occiput. And eventually you get a scan change. So I guess I did a lot of scans in between the two. I just tried to show some of the extremes to make it easier. It would be hard to show like 20 or 30 scans on there. It'd get real messy. But that was over a 2-month period. After the occiput adjustment, I guess I did left EX and L4, L5 pressures. And I did one other occiput adjustment in between the last scan change and this one. When symptoms were occurring, so you gotta be careful. You can't always go after symptoms, but I was a student, whatever the symptoms were, I was like, well, they came back, must be an adjustment. Be careful when doing that. You don't want to dig yourself in a hole. So this is over 2 months. And then the scan eventually looked like this. So that's a pretty ideal scan. So it's looking really good. So we got nice clearouts, and then you just let the body change and do its thing. Start healing on its own. Let me show you a good one of a not so good scan change. So this one. So what I did is I wanted to see if pressures on the back would change thermography. So say I did an adjustment and I got a little bit of a scan change. Is that really a scan change, or is that just because my hand was on there causing the back to be hot? And so I did pressures L4, L5, and then the yellow is the post scan immediately after. And as you can see, that wasn't really a scan change. That was more just my hand being on the back. So even though it looked like I warmed up this whole back area because it was cold before, that was because my hand was there. And so the skin was still warm. So you gotta be careful about scanning too close right after the adjustment, because your scan changes won't be true scan changes. Here's another case. So this person's a 25-year-old male. They had tightness in the mid-thoracics, especially in between and around the scapulas. Listings I had on this was T1, T2. So this was initial pattern. So you had a couple scans that looked like that. Make sure you always do more than one scan. Excuse me. And then this was the scan post adjustment. Okay. So there's a delta T. Now keep in mind, when I was doing these adjustments, I didn't have the delta T to even go by. I was going by lines, and then after the software upgrade, I wanted to see what the delta T's looked like with the new different colors. So that's why I threw them in here after. But when I was doing all this work, I was doing strictly lines. So that's why I can show you all the lines. So here's the initial scan. Pattern or no pattern? That's the question. So here's the delta T's. So that was 20 days apart. those two exact scans, so these two scans. Whoops, here's the delta t's. So here we go. So I had the initial pattern. I thought that this yellow line was patterned, so I adjusted. And then the post adjustment was the blue line. And so then I'm like, all right, maybe that wasn't a pattern to begin with, because if you, so this pink line, I was thinking, that was the initial. Post adjustment was the yellow line. Or after the post adjustment, it was a scan. I thought it was patterned, so I was like, oh, I better adjust it. And then the light blue line was after that, a day later, and then it was the same as the initial pattern. So did I put them back in the pattern? Yeah, more likely than not. So you gotta be careful. If you adjust, put them in pattern, they're not gonna like you. You're not gonna like yourself, and it's just a bad day for everyone. So things to consider. Was it the wrong time? Possibility, wrong place. Was my hand placement, really where I thought it was? Because if they had a T2 and you hit T1 instead of T2, you're not helping that person out any at all. Was the adjustment good enough? Did I put this guy in pattern? More likely than not. So now what? So if you do that, you just gotta let them wait. So, if one adjustment put them back in the pattern, another one, I mean, I guess you could try it, but another one's probably not going to be in their favor. So pattern or not pattern? I thought that was a pattern. So I adjusted it, and then I got a good scan change. So that's one that went the right way. All right, here's another case. Case number 4. This person has chronic headaches every single day of her life, every day. For as long as she can remember, she had low back pain, and she's had both ACL surgeries replaced on her knees. She was a basketball player, or at least liked to play basketball. This is a good teaching lesson. When you scan, the reason why it's important to do multiple scans in the beginning is because if you do one scan and it's a scan error, then your next scan is going to look like a scan change, even if it wasn't a scan change. So this is a scan error. She had dreadlocks, and so that's what it can look like when you scan the neck and get a cold sweep like that. That's pretty much what I just said. So here we go. So this is really cool. So that other scan I showed you? So that was one scan, but this was her actual pattern that actually went the other way. So if I did nothing and I just had her wait a day and then scan, it wouldn't have been in pattern when she really was. So I adjusted T1 and T3. As a student, I don't know if I'd recommend adjusting that many segments at once. But all students, they just want to adjust, right? So that's what you're going to do. So T1, T3 was adjusted. The post scan was this yellow line. And she still had headaches. And so I was like, well, she's got an occiput too, and might as well hit that. And so I adjusted that, but I didn't wait for a pattern. That was just like 4 or 5 days later. I didn't wait for the pattern to come back. And so, it could have been a mistake, because when I had him come back a week later after that, it was the same scan as when I did the occiput. So now I'm like, oh, what do I do now, right? So I was like, oh boy. So I did a little bit of right low again. I took it easy. I did T1 to T3. Just did some light instrument work. And because she said her headaches were doing better. And then Then she came back. That green line is the post, and then it straightened completely out. So she started to heal after that one. If you want to see what the delta T's look like, there they are. So you can see what I did. T1, T3 initially. Oxput was adjusted on the second one. Nothing changed in terms of headaches. I think that's why I adjusted the oxput. And then when she came back here, headaches were gone completely for the first time ever. I still instrumented T1 to T3. Not really sure why. Probably because I wanted to do something. But you know, it would have been fine to just let her go. And then when it was clear, so that green line when it was clear, I guess I adjusted the right PI even though there's no pattern. I would not recommend that. As it says, I went out of order. This was the first time the patient had been to a chiropractor. So if you get a nice clear out like that, don't adjust on those days. So don't do that mistake. Alright, this is a cool case. So this was a patient I was taking care of for a while. These are just the last set of scans because I can only do so many screenshots and you don't want to see like 40 scans. So I was taking care of them on through here. Ignore this one, this was their initial pattern. But between which two visits, so I was taking care of them, I got their scans looking really good. Because, I mean, if that was their initial pattern, these are all better than that. So between which two scans do you think they went and saw a chiropractor over break? And so after number 8, they went and saw another chiropractor. And then they came back with this scan. I was like, oh my goodness. So then we just had to start all over again. So that's why thermography is very important. You know, it tells you a lot what's going on. This was a cool one. Somebody sent me pictures of a patient that just had a heart attack and was on a lot of medication. And you know how they say medication, especially if you're on a lot of medication, can straighten out lines. And so this is what it looked like with the single probe. See how it's very straight in there, almost dead straight? That's a very sick person, or it could have been the medication they're on also. Here's the left probe and right probe. Sorry, this is the delta T, I think. And these are the left probes and right probes. Or these are two different patients. I forget. I get those mixed up. So I hope if you watch this, you found this information valuable. And hopefully you learn something from it so you can prevent a lot of the mistakes that I made. Because it sucks to make mistakes. You know, nobody likes doing it. So I figured if I could help any of your students out while you're trying to still learn, then I've done my job. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys were able to learn something out of it. And hopefully you guys can go out there in the real world and start changing some lives. See you guys in club.